Imagine a neighborhood where every resident knows the exact details of a terrifying crime. In this place, speaking up or pointing a finger carries a specific, lethal price. You will be the next victim. When immediate survival is the only objective, the human brain enters a state where the preservation of the self and the family takes precedence over every other social obligation. This was the daily reality of Belfast in the winter of 1973. It was a city under a total rule of fear, where the sounds of armored vehicles and heavy footsteps in the darkness kept families behind locked doors and drawn curtains. To understand how a whole community can lose its voice, we have to look at one specific night when the pressure of that fear turned neighbors into bystanders. Eileen Doyle was a mother living in this chaos, raising her children in streets where burnt-out ruins were the backdrop of everyday life. She spent her days trying to keep the violence of the city from crossing her threshold. That threshold was crossed on a rainy evening when her 9-year-old daughter, Anna, saw 3 figures approaching the house. Then came the signal that everyone in Belfast dreaded. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Eileen knew this wasn't a social visit. Her final act of protection was a whisper to Anna as she sent her to hide upstairs. Whatever happens, say nothing. 3 people were waiting at the door, including a young woman named Maeve Kelly. Eileen took one last look at her daughter on the stairs, walked out into the rain, and disappeared. The next morning, Anna went to the neighbors. Some had heard the car, some had seen the shadows. But as Anna begged for help, she found that the doors stayed shut and the witnesses stayed quiet. This reveals the core mystery of the era. What force is strong enough to make an entire street of people ignore a child's plea and bury a crime they all witnessed? This collective silence is a documented biological response to trauma. When a community lives in a state of siege, the brain's priority shifts. Constant terror triggers a survival mode that actively suppresses our desire for justice. The mind focuses entirely on the immediate threat. Silence is the exchange the body makes to stay safe, realizing that speaking up today means a car pulls up to your door tomorrow. For children growing up here, this environment became the only reality they knew. A 4-year-old learns to play while men in camouflage carry rifles 10 feet away, internalizing danger as a permanent part of the landscape. The neighbors weren't trying to hurt Anna. They were performing the same desperate calculations she had just watched her mother perform: protect the children by staying invisible. Over the years, this evolved into enforced community amnesia. It's an unspoken agreement to never speak of the past, hoping that by ignoring the wound, the community can maintain a fragile peace. This amnesia has a devastating cost for the survivors. Anna spent decades searching for answers in a neighborhood where people looked through her, as if acknowledging her search would break the walls they had spent 40 years building. On the other side of the secret, Maeve Kelly followed the rules. She grew old in the same silence she helped create, never deviating from the code of the era. But the code only protected her from the law. It couldn't protect her from the memory of that night. The secret she kept to save herself eventually became the primary source of her own isolation. While a community can mandate that no one speaks, they cannot stop the internal weight of a secret from eventually breaking the person carrying it. Secrets break when the internal pressure of guilt finally becomes heavier than the external threat of retaliation. For an individual at the end of their life, the need to be heard can finally outweigh the fear of the consequences. Maeve Kelly reached that point before she died. She recorded a full confession, finally detailing the car, the names, and the exact events of the night Eileen Doyle was taken. When Anna finally heard that tape, she wasn't just hearing a list of facts. She was hearing a recorded voice finally admit that the world she had lived in for decades was real. The truth could not bring her mother back, but it ended the community amnesia. It validated Anna's search and restored a history that had been systematically erased for a generation. Anna eventually returned to her childhood home, standing at the same door where the 3 knocks had changed her life. As she stood there, a young girl from the neighborhood asked her if something happened at that house. Anna had spent her life surrounded by people who would have said nothing, but instead of continuing the cycle of silence, she gave the girl a truthful answer. Yes, something happened here, and people should know. A buried secret doesn't simply disappear. It stays under the surface until someone finds the courage to speak the truth out loud, finally ending the fear that kept a city silent.